Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about comic books,
Costumes,
facts, boots,
and other stuff.
In this week's issue,
Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Part 1. Welcome into what?
No, I was going to say, we don't often get to hear the intro and all that stuff. Damn, that's pretty good.
It is. I
It's
mean,
not bad at all.
Granted, it always gets struck every week, but it is really good.
That's okay. That's okay. We're going to fix that. We'll fix that.
What I think we're going to do, and I'm about to intro the show. First of all, welcome into Bros, Foes,
Hey, guys.
and Heroes.
Sorry.
I'm Zach. No, you're good. I'm Zach.
We haven't done
joined
one of
as
these in a
always-
little bit, and
We
so
haven't.
it's kind of, yeah.
Joined
a
as
little-
always by the man who is messing up the flow of things, Mr. Mike.
I'm a little good. I'm a little giddly.
No,
Yeah, or
Giggly. Is that like
giggly.
giggly?
I don't.
Or-
What is it? What giddy?
Giddy.
Giddy.
Yeah.
I was trying to say giggle, and giddy at the same time, and it came out giggly or giddly.
Well, giggly's a word.
Giddily.
Giddly. It
Yeah.
was something like that.
Giddily. That's what I'm
Um,
doing. Yeah. That's gonna
What
be
we
one.
are is we started out as an audio podcast, but now you have video of our lovely faces, so we can
Yeah,
actually
we're-
show you what we're talking about as well. A comic book podcast each week where we bring you either a hero or a villain or a storyline or something comics related, a story to tell you. Usually Mike knows nothing about it besides maybe something about the characters, and he gets to learn and go on this journey together. And it gives me a chance to either tell him about something ridiculous or interesting, or in this case, something very good, as we are going to get into something that we will see in James Gunn's DCU pretty early on. I think it's the next movie after Superman, and that is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. We are going to be talking about the Tom King written, Bilquis Evely drawn series here today, as we're going to get into part 1. We'll cover the first 4 issues, and then next week we will go ahead and cover issues 5 through 8 to close out the entire series.
I think
but
she's
yeah, it's been
in
a
the
while.
Superman movie too, right?
I don't know if she is or not. I haven't seen, I've seen stuff about the Superman movie, like the filming and stuff they did, and I know that they're working on all the, I guess, post. I think the rumor is we might have a trailer by the middle of December. I think is what I've heard. But
It would make
I haven't
sense
heard
to
anything
put
about
her
her
in
being
there,
in it,
though,
but
you
it
know?
makes sense.
Yeah,
Huh?
I mean, it makes sense to just introduce those characters when you can, you know?
Well, as we'll see, her story, while they're similar, they are a little different. And this is a story when we get into that's really great of, while it is a Supergirl story, for the most part, you don't really need to know anything else about Supergirl to understand the story.
Oh,
If
that's
you know
cool.
you know who she is, you know that obviously she is also from Krypton like Superman. So you know that Krypton is no more. Like, it's a similar situation of where she, she's on Earth with him. Like, we've covered some Supergirl stories before, so we know a little bit. But in this, everything else, Mike, we don't get to do this too much. Our entire adventure, none of it takes place on Earth. This is like a space epic. I've heard people describe it as true grit in space is the pitch for Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Did she make out with a horse in this one?
No, but
That's
Comet
good.
the Super Horse is in here.
Is he?
He is.
What? He just won't get his shit and leave. He
Here's
keeps
the
coming by
thing.
the apartment.
I don't want to ruin it once it gets there, but it is kind of referenced a little bit of stuff that we have previously talked about.
Okay. Good.
In a sense,
That sounds great.
they may that's kind of weird, and they just kind of keep going, but they at least reference it a little bit.
That's good.
In a way.
When somebody dates a horse, you probably should bring it up at some point. I mean,
okay, well, they didn't do the dating part, but then again, because I went back and I had to make a short. I didn't have to. I chose to make a short for our show based off that
contractually
episode.
obligated.
Yeah. And what it is honestly Comet, or when he becomes a human, I think he goes by Bill or Bronco Bill or something like that, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
He gaslights Supergirl. Like, that's the thing, is he never like tells Supergirl, hey,
Yeah.
I'm a horse. So like, it's not Supergirl's fault. If anything,
Hey, I'm a
it's all
horse.
Comet. At some point in time, he has to say something.
That's fantastic. Love it.
Previewing just our week real quick. Thanksgiving this week, so enjoy that on
Yeah.
Thursday. Mike has to work, so
Happy Turkey Day, everybody.
yeah. Howdy ho.
I have to work. It's so weird. Like, I haven't had to do anything on Thanksgiving Day in a long time. Like, I made, a pretty good decision to, that would be like one of those days that I didn't do anything when I started this, but freaking Cowboys, man.
Yeah, they're gonna make you work. They got to play every Thursday. There's
Stupid
nothing like
Cowles.
watching them play the Giants of all people.
It sounds so
yeah.
gross.
But we will have 2 shows for you this week. The one today, our regular one on Monday, and then World's Finest Wednesday. I know we usually keep it DC and World's Finest, but I figured, hey, I started this, or the extra stuff, to cover more Silver Age stuff. That doesn't mean we can't cover some Marvel Silver Age stuff in there. So World's Finest Wednesdays, I'm going to start peppering in some origin stories that we haven't covered from some of the Marvel and DC comics and from around that time. And this week, cool. Mike, I don't know if you know, at least he appeared in like Marvel comics early on, but I don't know if you're aware of when they actually kind of threw Thor into the Marvel universe of his so-called origin. So we'll get to that on Wednesday. It is very interesting. He had not split personalities, but he was 2 people. So that's something you can look forward to on Wednesday as we cover Thor's origin in Journey into Mystery number 83. But today, as I go ahead and I bring it up on the screen for everybody and for Mike to see, we have Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow issue 1, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. The artwork in this is fantastic. The team of Tom King, who was the writer, Bilquis Evely, did the art. I'm pretty sure coloring was Matt Lopes. Just everybody who worked on this is just absolutely gorgeous on everything. I'm going to try to make it full screen on mine so I can get a better view of this. I don't have the intro page, but yeah, so that's King, Evely, and Lopes there on the cover. But the team that worked on this, it looks absolutely gorgeous through this whole story. And what I've done is, so I am all about pushing people. Obviously, we cover a good amount of the story. You can get like a good viewing of it, but there's going to be other stuff that you can go in and pick up and appreciate from reading it on your own. And one of the things that it's going to be is Tom King's dialogue throughout this whole thing. Just the way he writes it is fantastic. I can't do it justice and won't be able to by doing, bringing up and reading it for is. So I'm going to have to like just paraphrase, but a lot of it is beautifully written to go along with just the beautiful visuals. And from start to finish, it's just a great book. Before we get into start issue 1, Tom King is a writer that I know a lot of people for some reason don't like. Mainly, I guess it's just his run on Batman for the most part. But I can tell you everything that I've read, I fully enjoyed. We talked a little bit about how I got to read a lot more when I was in the hospital. That is one of the things in the 3 weeks since we've been gone. I had major surgery. Well, no, we talked a little bit about that in Swamp Thing, but I have a son now. So that's something else to add to the mix. And so
that had nothing to do with the surgery, by the way. You make it sound like they were right there together, but they really were not. Yeah, there were 2 different events.
They were a week apart, but they were not related to each other.
I had major surgery and I have a son now. Okay, wait a minute. What happened?
It does sound like they're linked, but and so I got to, there was a lot of time in there of where I'd have to like just kind of wait with nothing to do, and it gave me perfect time to read. And I had this on my shelf and I finally read it. And if I told my wife this, and I know I'm putting too much on it, but if Mr. Miracle was like my perfect 10, this Supergirl was a 9.8. It was fantastic.
Wow, really?
And I loved all of it. Yeah. And I'm really excited to see then, because I know that they are writing a screenplay obviously based off this. I'm sure they'll make some changes for the movie. The thing that I do find funny is Tom King, who wrote this, is actually like a supervisor on some of the DCU projects that James Gunn's working on.
That's
but
fabulous.
not the Supergirl movie.
Really? How weird.
He's working on Lanterns and some other stuff, but that's fine. I mean, but so all right, let's go
If you
ahead
like
and
Lantern, sure.
well, I think Lanterns might. I know you don't like Green Lantern, not
I
as much
don't.
as you don't like Aquaman, but
Aquaman's a stupid character, but yeah, but it come at me, whatever.
I think I think the Lantern show is going to be good.
The Lantern thing, I will give I mean, I gave Aquaman a try, so I'll give it a try also. Hey, just real quick, I'm sorry, I don't normally do this, but Bilquis Evely, the artist for this and this the entire run.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, born in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And she is only 34 years old, which makes me feel like a real terrible person. Because I have not done near what she has done.
Well,
but
that's it. I'm 2 years older, and I don't even have a start to get anywhere close to this stuff. So I'm with you.
Writer, penciler, inker, cover artist, creations.
She does it all.
She also, I think, let's see, it says she is at DC Comic staff, DC Black Label staff, Vertigo staff.
That's a DC print too.
Yeah, she's done a lot, man. You start looking at her catalog, there is so much.
And her and Tom King are actually, I don't know if it's still continuing, but they were working on another series together that was Helena of Winthorne, I think was the name of it. I could be off on the name, for Image here recently too. So, and it's fantastic art. Like I love her art and through all of this. And the color, it's all great. It's everything about this. It's one of those things of where how I loved the Mitch Gerard style for Mr. Miracle and how it fit with this. This fits very well with everything Supergirl wise, and we'll see when we get into it. So,
I'm super impressed by this artwork. It's just gorgeous.
Let's go ahead and get things started with issue 1 of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. And what I've done here, Mike, is we don't have the entire issue, but we have the main beats that we're going to cover, the art to show off as we go through it. And you might think, okay, this is a Supergirl story. So Supergirl is going to be our main character. And while she is one of our main characters, she's not even our narrator here. Our narrator is a girl by the name of, I will tell you, when I read it the first time, I thought was just Ruth. It's Ruthyye. Where is it at? It's on here somewhere. She introduces herself later. Essentially, it's either Ruthie or Ruthie is how you say her name. I'm going to call her Ruthie. So Ruthie is our narrator for this story, and she is essentially our main character, with Supergirl also being one of them through this. Like I told you, it's kind of true grit and space, and you'll see why here as we get into it. As we start the story, Ruthie is telling us of how a man by the name of Krim from the Yellow Hills killed her father. They suspected him to be a King's agent, that he had come to their rock farm. They're just lowly rock farmers, which if you wonder, rock farm, yeah, they just grow rocks. Like from little pebbles, it's brought through the story, like from little pebbles up into giant boulders and stuff. Like the planet they live on, they grow rocks. Well, not here, but on their planet it does.
Okay,
but they're rock farmers.
All right.
I'm
willing to let that one go. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Yeah.
This Krim of the Yellow Hills had come to seek shelter, and they thought that he had been like a King's agent, which essentially, go around seeing how people feel about the King. And if they have a negative attitude, well, they either deal with him or, let the King know, and they deal with people who talk bad about the King. Anyway, it's believed that they kind of get into an argument out in the fields one day, and I'm kind of paraphrasing all this from when we get to, and Krim ends up killing her father and just leaves him there dead. She's kind of perplexed by the fact that he didn't even retrieve his sword from it, and she could just easily just like take it back out. But this girl, Ruthie, her world has kind of changed forever. Her father has now been killed. She's the youngest of, I believe, 6 kids, but like out of all of them, to her, like her father was everything in a way. So she feels like something needs to be done. Her brothers, while they are talking over it one night of, hey, what should we do? Should we hunt down Krim? No. We'll let the divine deal with it. Yeah. We have far too much to worry about here. Like we'll let the divine deal with what we're doing. Ruthie doesn't like that idea and decides she's going to seek vengeance herself, if not by either hiring somebody to go and kill Krim of the Yellow Hills, for, murdering her father. So she leaves, and some of these I left in to get some fantastic art in there too. Clayton Cowles, a letter or two I should throw in there. But yeah, Evelyn Lopes did the cover as well, but we have our previews there. But some of this, unfortunately, this beast that she rides isn't brought up again, but it's just a fantastic looking thing.
So I was going to say, like, it one of the things that over the years that makes, and I make these, I don't know if you know this, but I make these judgments real quick on things. In space, coming up with new animals and new creatures like that, that is a true art form. It's because I have a hard time looking at one of these things and not going, oh, it's just a horse with a pair of ears on it or something, or whatever. And I think that Star Wars did that to us because they have put out some gross stuff as far as creatures go. And it's because they're stretched so thin at this point, and so everything starts to kind of look at the same and stuff. This is an original looking animal. Now you can see influences of horse, of maybe a yak, maybe those kind of larger hooved animals. But it looks unique enough for me to think that it is on another planet, if that makes sense. Yeah,
it's great, and we will get into
definitely a compliment
because there is a lot of space travel in this story of hopping from planet to planet, and that was the beauty of it too. Like you brought up, like each planet has different, like life form there looks different, but it was great to see like all the different, people from that inhabited each planet and just the way they were drawn and stuff like that. It's fantastic. So Ruthie travels into town in search to find somebody who can help her avenge her father's death by killing Krim of the Yellow Hills. And she meets this kind of bounty hunter who she tells her like, hey, my name is Ruthie Marie Knoll. And she, Krim of the Yellow Hills killed my father. I'm looking for somebody to, go and kill him. This sword I'm using, it's a very fine sword. It's the sword that Krim ended up leaving, but it's a very fine sword. You can use it as payment for, a job well done. And the barbarian, or this bounty hunter here, just simply tells her like, don't worry about it. I'll go ahead and take care of your Krim of the Yellow Hills guy, and I'll go ahead and take the sword now as payment. And you could just go back home and know that everything's been taken care of. And Ruthie's like, I don't really like the way that this transaction's working out. And the bounty hunter just backhands her to the floor. And he's like, you're a kid. I told you I'm going to do this. Don't worry. I've got your man. You can just go back home and live the rest of your life knowing that it's taken care of.
God, he's so big.
He is. As he goes to leave, he's stopped by a woman who is just drinking in the corner. And she grabs the sword and essentially tells him, no, you can't do that. That's not yours. And the bounty hunter essentially is, taken aback by this. And he's like, what do you mean? If I have to take care of you the same way I do her, like I will. But little does he know that this girl here is actually Supergirl. The two of them get into a fight, and like he's sitting there just mouthing the whole time of like, I refuse to lose to a woman, as the last words out of his mouth, as she's stolen the sword back, and she has the other one there at his throat. And as you can see there, Mike, Crypto back there in the background too. As Crypto's there with her. So we're going to find out a little bit more, but I'll explain to you what she's doing here. Because Supergirl is actually acting like she is, there's a part during the battle where she grabs the sword blade to like stop him from swinging it at her, and she starts bleeding. And you're thinking to yourself, well, this is Supergirl. Why is she? Superman doesn't bleed. Well, the planet that Ruthie lives on has a red sun. So she has, it doesn't affect her like ours. So she's just normal under the red sun. And we come to find out that Supergirl has purposely flown to a planet with a red sun so she can get drunk for her 21st birthday.
Oh,
she's like, I'm going, like, it's not, doesn't affect me anywhere else. I'm just going to go be by myself and party it up. I say party it up, but I'm going to go drink by myself in a place where I can actually feel the effects of it. And so by doing so, it's also affected her other powers, though. She's not as strong. She's not as invulnerable to things, but that's why she's there. We get to see then immediately the next morning she wakes up. And I do love this part. And we're far enough into the episode that I know that YouTube won't demonetize it, or I'll edit if it comes to it. But she just wakes up because it is a little like it has the wingdings. Some of the cursing gets through depending on what it is. But I just love this part because she just wakes up and she's just like, you can tell she's hungover, and it's just like a fuck. And Ruthie, who's sitting there, who was kind of, you get this sense of like, there's a difference between their two lifestyles in a way of her being from this town and Supergirl not. And Ruthie goes, you speak often of this fuck, especially when you're in agony or when your agony becomes acute. Is this your husband? Like she's trying to figure out like, you know, how the way she's talking.
That's funny.
Like
that's
that.
actually really well done. That's really good. Yeah.
So like that's the thing too, is if you're looking for differences so far to cut it off, Supergirl is kind of like a foul mouthed Superman. Like she lets her emotions show at times. She still is just as much as we'll come to see, very much so, especially by the end of this episode. Like very much in the same vein as Superman, but she's a little more colorful in the way she is. Like there's this point where like we realized she was wearing her costume like underneath all that stuff. She was just trying to blend in the corner over there. And like, you know, she's sick obviously from everything that happens, but Ruthie tells her like, you're easily the strongest, like best warrior I've ever seen. I need you to like avenge my father's death. Like my name is Ruthie Marie Null, and I am witness, you know, to your skill and bravery. I would like to hire you to kill Crim of the Yellow Hills. And they have this moment. Oh, I don't have it in there. And it's great because they have this moment where she like Supergirl gives her this look before giving her an answer. And the next panel is her just hurling into the bucket again, like without giving her an answer. Supergirl essentially tells her like, hey, I tell you, like, I have another job that's off planet. I'm assuming referring to stuff on Earth. Like that's the things it's not, we don't get into it, but she's like, I have other stuff that I have to attend to. Like I was here for my birthday. Like, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't kill people. Killing's bad. Like you wanting to go hunt this guy down, probably not a good thing to do, but I wish you the best. And I hope that you can find some peace. And she kind of like leaves Ruthie and she paddles like back through this rowboat. They come to like this lake. And she paddles away with Crypto on this rowboat. And Ruthie just kind of stares off. In the art, again, it doesn't matter what it is. Even it's gorgeous throughout the entire series. Even down to Ruthie's purple eyes. I love it on all of it. And she's just staring off and she has this like thought in her head of like, it has to be Supergirl that helps me with all this. So she dives into the water to swim after her. And we find out like there's like piranha like creatures in the water and stuff too. So she's like swimming through all of this dangerous stuff because to her, it has to be Supergirl that is the person she hires. Like she's the only one who can do this. And she shows up and she sees, Ruthie does, when she finally comes across the other side of the water, she sees this giant like spaceship and she has no clue what this giant mechanical thing is because again, this is a more like primitive planet that they're on. They're rock farmers, for goodness sake.
Hey, just real quick. I'm sorry. I really was not trying to be rude here, but I got on my phone because this art reminded me of something. And honestly, it's the Silver Surfer Mobius stuff. The art is very similar. Like it just feels the same. Like the line weight is the same. The use of pastels and things like that. It's just, it really reminds me. And that is one of my all-time favorite series right there.
I would think you'd have to love that then because you're a big Mobius Surfer fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I love that one. And this art just totally reminds me of that. She has done, I'm just floored by this. So much so that while you were talking, I sent her a request and asked her for an interview. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm telling you, it's all, everything she puts out is just absolutely gorgeous.
I would like to know what her influences are, you know, like is Mobius like one of those influences of yours and things like that. So that would be very, very interesting. Anyway, not funny, but very interesting.
No, again, well, I mean, we've had we aren't always funny. Sometimes we are interesting. We talk to
A lot of people will say we're never funny, but sure,
that's
yeah,
true.
I get it.
We talk. We got to talk to Reed Tucker about
That's right.
some of the
That's
stuff that going on at DC and Marvel back in the 70s and 80s. That was fun.
That was
I
great.
expect us to do more interviews in the future too. So I mean,
Oh yeah,
at some point in time, we're going to. I can tell you another book, and I'll tease it a little bit, Mike. I got to read. There is. We haven't done anything by him, but the guy's name is Daniel Warren Johnson.
okay.
And he did a book. I can't remember if it's for Boom or for Image. I read it. I'll have to look. It might have been Dark Horse. It wasn't for one of the big ones, but it's just a 7-issue series, and it's about wrestling. It's a wrestling it is so good. Like at one point in time, like it involves a necromancer. Like they're in a wrestling tournament and they wrestle people from other planets, with the prize being to be able to bring somebody back from the dead. It is so good. It is so good.
I'm all in. Yeah, I'm all in on that. That sounds cool.
He not only wrote it, but he also drew it and colored it too. He's responsible for one of my favorite like Superman stories in the past 5 years that we haven't covered because I bawl like a baby every time I read it. Even thinking about it now, but it's and he has a Wonder Woman story dead out there we'll get to too. But like there's stuff like that we're going to get to that's just going to be interesting and good. And like I'm going to cover, and this is one of them. And it's just absolutely gorgeous through all of it. But
one more thing, and then I'll let you get back to your storytelling. But also last week we talked to your friend Craig. You know who I'm talking about when I say Craig? About a wrestling show. So we'll see.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. We'll see how that works.
I mean, he's an
it'd be fun.
Guy.
It'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be fun.
He's really, he knows what he's talking about.
Might see a different side. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
in talking to him, he just wants to do other things.
I love how like Mike and I are having a conversation between
That's
the
right.
two of us for just like
all of you know it, Craig.
Everybody else is just
fine.
like, yeah, and they're just like, I hope so too. Like, like we may never talk about this again. But so Ruthie comes across Supergirl in her spaceship, who is getting ready to leave the planet, and like Supergirl drops the stairs down, and she comes.
I don't see a lot of stairs on spaceships.
No, you don't.
Usually,
but
it's like this
like it.
Like thing that they walk down. Yeah, no, this makes way more sense to me.
Oh, for sure. And excuse me, I like that. Like Ruthie is just still taken aback by like, what is this thing that I'm looking at? While Supergirl's talking to her, like, hey, like this is like a giant horse that I ride in, and when it takes off, it bucks really hard. So you like might want to be out of the way. Like she's trying to explain it and tell her like you need to go. And Ruthie's just sitting there, and Ruthie, she's just like, I'm sorry.
So
she is, but she's like, I've got to go, and you do too. And Ruthie goes, like, she pauses for a moment and again holds out the sword and goes, my name is Ruthie Marie Knoll. I would like to hire you. Like she's still like, she is determined for it to be Supergirl. Well, while they're doing this, they have taken a little bit too much time. Well, there is this part. I will add this, that they do a really good job. I'll leave it on here too. They do a really good job of teasing. Is like Supergirl tells her, like, I know you're going through a lot. And Ruthie goes, you know, I'm going through a lot. Like, you don't know anything. Like, I lost my dad. I lost my whole world. Like, you don't know anything about that. Yeah. And like, there's our Yellow Box is there, the narrator. And she's like, I would soon come to find out how much she really did know about all that. Like, this is her like telling the story as we go. And she's like, you know, I didn't know that my words would hurt her as much as they did, like how much she had been through. And that's like, she has this moment and she's just like, you know, overcome with emotion, and she's cursing again. And she's like, I came here for my birthday, so I wouldn't have to think about any of this. Like, she's just kind of like overcome with emotion. And about that time, she takes an arrow straight to the chest. And Ruthie turns to look, and we see that good old Crim of the Yellow Hills, that bounty hunter that she was going to get to help. Well, since he got embarrassed, he decided to go tell Crim, hey, this little girl's trying to pay people to have you killed. So Crim's like, well, I'll go ahead and help her out then. I'll go hunt her down, take care of her, and just be done with it. Well, they go to shoot Supergirl a second time, and Crypto, being man's best friend like he is, and the best damn dog you could ever have, a super dog, takes off charging after him and like lunges at him and gets hit with the arrow, and it
Yeah.
wounds Crypto, and that's enough to just piss off Supergirl. To which she picks herself up and she just starts marching towards them. And then, like, she's hitting the chest with another arrow, and she's still just walking towards them. And she's like, "Swords and arrows? Do you even know who I am? I'm Supergirl. Do you think I give a shit about swords and arrows?" And you see her just like grab the blade as she's just sitting there, just bleeding from it. Like, I'm telling you, the Supergirl's a badass.
Yeah.
But like a good kind of badass, as you'll see. And she's enraged, obviously, because you don't mess with Crypto. Well, she ends up beating up the other bounty hunter that she beat before, and Krim, noticing, oh no, that's going to be me next if I don't do anything, takes off running towards the ship. And as he takes off running towards the ship, Ruthie tries to stop him, and he just kind of kicks her to the side, hops up on the ship, and Krim of the Yellow Hills ends up stealing Supergirl's ship and takes off from Ruthie's planet as Ruthie is bucked away by the giant metal horse. And
Man, she is not just bucked away. She is chunked.
Thrown.
Look at her. I mean, she just like...
Yeah. And she is left there along with a wounded Crypto and wounded Supergirl. And that ends issue 1 of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Now, issue 2 of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, where we will pick up and continue our story. I know you've always wanted to know, Mike, what is it like to travel in space if you don't have your own personal spaceship?
Boy, that is, you are right on the tip of my brain there.
Well, what if I told you Space Bus is the answer to that?
I kind of assumed. I mean,
so I mean, I love the way how everybody's like packed in, like any kind of traveling you do. So essentially, Supergirl and Ruthie, no longer having a ship to escape on, have to travel via Space Bus then, because Supergirl, who has spent over 24 hours in a red sun planet, does not have all of her power set, so she can't just fly around anywhere. So she has to resort to public transit just like everybody else would, or a way to, get from point A to point B. So
I would get on a Space Bus.
Well, there's a point, you see the giant thing sitting between them.
Yeah.
The first part of this issue, like Ruthie is up against the window and he's like leaning over into her space. Like she's having to like push him over, and he's too big to like, he's very like, it's just like any other public or any other kind of travel you've done of where he's taking over way too much of her space. She's like, she goes onto this long spiel about, I was believed if I bought this seat that I'll have X amount of space to sit in. And like, you're, leaning over into my space kind of thing.
Yeah. This looks very much like the Spirit flight I took to Vegas. It looks very much like that. Yeah.
Same passengers too.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So
lots of loose animals and things running around. I mean, it was just,
Oh, lovely. So we come to find out, I think it's explained a little bit later in this, but I'll explain it now. When Krim shot Crypto, he was shot with a poison arrow. Their hunters hunt with poison arrows on our planet. Each hunter has like their own little mix. So for them to be able to help Crypto, they need to hunt down Krim to know what he used to be able to get
like an antidote. Yeah,
exactly. So Supergirl tells Ruthie this, and she's like, you know him. If you saw his face again, like I wasn't able to see him well. If you saw his face again, you'd be able to point him out where we could get him, right? And Ruthie's like, yes. Ruthie, to her, like what Supergirl's trying to say, she's like, all right, then help me hunt him down to find this antidote. And to Ruthie, she still wants Supergirl to avenge her father's death, right?
Sure.
That's her big thing there. So that is while they're traveling, trying to hunt down Krim of where he could have possibly gone. As they travel, there's a point where they stop on this station, and I just really kind of love this. Did I include the whole thing? Yeah. And so they walk off, and it's like these space stations where you can like get a meal, use a bathroom, everything you would think a space station would have, where you would stop.
Your regular space station, sure.
Yeah, Space Bus travel. And so Ruthie gets something to eat. Supergirl has something to drink. and they're talking back and forth, just Supergirl and Ruthie. And Supergirl's like, how do you like travel? And Ruthie's like, I guess I like it so far. Like, you have to think it's very much like kind of Country Mouse and City Mouse, except Country Mouse in this case, and Ruthie is a rock farmer who's never left her planet, who didn't even know that spaceships were a thing. So this
rock
is all
farmer.
her. Rock farmer. While they're sitting there talking, one of the other travelers like kind of butts in and goes, excuse me. And Kara, which is also Supergirl's name, how you know how Clark or Superman is Kal-El, like Kara is Supergirl's name.
Gotcha.
I think it's Kara L. I think they are from the same house.
I don't know her real origin or anything, but that's for another day.
Here's the thing. The beauty of this is we won't get into it for part 1, but it does add to a lot of the story. Obviously, part 2 does give it to adds more to it. So you're going to get some answers there too, or for our part 2 when we get there. So this other space traveler, as Kara turns and goes, yes, sir. He goes, like, this guy back here says that you're Supergirl. Are you really Supergirl? Because you see, like, Superman put 2 of my brothers in the Phantom Zone, and I swore that, you know, because of him doing that if I came across any of his family, like, I was going to kill them for what he did to my family. And Supergirl kind of looks at him and goes, like, well, I'm wearing a red skirt. There's like a yellow S on my chest and a cape. So if I'm not Supergirl, then who the hell am I?
Yeah.
And it's very quickly, nothing else is said. And she just quickly just kind of like elbows him to the gut and a quick slam to the, you know, the bar that they're at. And he falls down to her side, and she just goes back to drinking her drink and talking to Ruthie. And Ruthie the whole time is narrating this and is like, I tell you this one instance, just know that it happened plenty of times across our travels of somebody would have some beef with Superman because they didn't like her cousin, and because she was a part of the family, like they tried to make, you know, make a lesson out of her, and she would have to hold her own. So this was a common occurrence of their travels, which I just thought was kind of funny. There's a very sweet kind of heartfelt moment in here. Was that after? So while they're traveling on this space station, you're going to love this art. I hope I included both of them. But again, what I did is these are about 26 pages a piece, these issues, and I only have about 12 pages from there. So like, pick this up, look at this. There's so much great art that I don't have included in here that we're going through. Like, all of it's fantastic, but they come across a space dragon.
Ooh. And
the space dragon, you know, likes to eat things, like including giant spaceships if it were hungry enough.
Well, it's a space dragon.
It's a space dragon, but they shouldn't be over here in this hemisphere, so they don't know why he's over there, but still the same, like they don't have any way to deal with it. And so like Supergirl goes to the pilot, and he was like, you know, I heard you're Supergirl. Do you think you could like do anything about this? Like help us from this, you know, this space dragon? And she's like, well, I spent the last couple hours or the last day or so on a planet that zapped all my energy. So usually, yeah, but right now, not so much. Okay, I got an idea. And I love this. You know how we've talked before, how Alan Moore is really good about pulling from like old comics and stuff. Yeah. I would argue that Tom King is really good about doing that too. I finally read while I was in the hospital too. Are you an Adam Strange fan at all? Are you familiar with Adam Strange?
I don't know much about Adam Strange. I've heard a lot, but I don't know much about him.
But that's the thing, is he used stuff. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like what he did with the character. I really enjoyed the story, but he pulls a lot from like the character's history in there. I have a better understanding of Mr. Terrific now because of that book, so I can help explain him to you when we get to.
That's great.
Yeah, really great read. But anyway, and so what he has her do is she goes into the bay where everybody's riding. And she's like, all right, who's got reds? And it's like she's looking for drugs. And she's like, I'm not the cops. Like, come on, don't be shy about it. If you have it, she goes, I know you're in here. We all know that it's here. If you like, I'm not the cops. If you have it, just let me get some. Who's packing any? I need some reds. And we've come across this guy who's like, I have some, and they're a prescription for like essentially like my glaucoma. He gives a, for my glaucoma kind of thing. Sure. And she's like, sure. Now, still, I just need some. I don't care. And what it is Ruthie asks her, like, what is that? And she goes, it's red kryptonite. Now, Ruthie asks, well, what does it do? And she goes, well, it can do anything from turn you into a horrible monster to make your hair grow really long. Red kryptonite was the thing. And I know we will get to it more in some of our World's Finest Wednesdays.
I think we talked about it. I think we talked about red kryptonite. Yeah.
Was always the weird stuff for Superman. Like when he had a lion's head, it was red kryptonite. When he had a head that looked like an ant, it was red kryptonite. Like red kryptonite always did weird, crazy stuff. And so they're playing it up there, and she pops it. And I wasn't gonna save that page once we get there. She pops it and she looks at Ruthie, and her eyes kind of glow red, and she just goes, is my hair growing? Like trying to figure out. She doesn't know obviously what's gonna happen until she takes them. Thankfully for her, it gives her her power, and this page was just absolutely gorgeous.
My goodness.
And Supergirl is able to get her powers back to go out there and defeat this gorgeous space dragon. And then we are taken to a very sweet kind of moment to close out our space. Well, almost to close out our space travel issue. After they're done, Ruthie, being this, from the planet as a rock farmer, never used an indoor bathroom before. So she's like, I think I did it right. There's just so many holes. Like, I don't know. She's
That's
like,
a really good thing to throw in there. Like it's such a good, like, random detail, but it makes you feel like, oh, these are like people, even though one of them's an alien, or I guess both of them are.
Both of them are. Yeah. To us, they are.
Still cool. And it teaches children to always wash their hands. After
it does. Well, because she's leaving and she's like, Ruthie, are you going to wash your hands?
Yeah.
And Ruthie kind of looks at her and goes, is that a necessity? And Supergirl's like, oh, okay, y'all don't do that. Come here. Let me teach you how to do it. And Supergirl essentially like teaches her how to wash her hands. She tells her like, hey, everywhere you go, they have a faucet. It's usually water and they're usually some sort of soap. She's like, you got to be careful. So I went to one planet once where it was acid because the people that live there, like they just regrew their skin afterwards. But she goes, most of the time it's soap. And what you do, and she's like teaching her, and she's like lathering her hands for her and teaching her while she's doing it. And she tells her, she's like, my mom used to always tell me that, made me count, as so long while I washed my hands. And she starts just kind of reminiscing. She's like, if nothing else, Kryptonians were clean. Man, we were always clean. She's just kind of like reminiscing while she's teaching Ruthie to wash her hands there. And it leads to this moment where after they're done, like Ruthie kind of stops and looks at Supergirl and is like, did you ever, she goes, oh, did you ever try to hunt our, I can't remember how she words it, but she's like, did you ever try to get vengeance or not vengeance, but like, for like, I guess, I don't know, comeuppance in some way of all the people of Krypton? Like, were you able to, they passed away? Like, did you do anything? And Supergirl's just like, no, I didn't. And Ruthie just feels like in her tone, like she can sense like the sense of regret of like, she didn't do anything there. And like that kind of ends our like sweet moment of where it's like this, like her teaching her stuff. And then we get back to where they're traveling to the next place. And it's another situation of how we started issue 2 of where there's a passenger leaning into Ruthie's space again. And Ruthie's pushing on him again and is like, hey, I was told that if we bought this seat, I'm, given this amount of space and that's it. Like, you're in my space. And the big creature is like, if it were your space, I wouldn't be able to take it. Either shut up or I'll like eat you, like essentially. And all of a sudden you just see this crack across the face and he's silent and there's just bloods, draining from his nose. And he just leans backward into his seat quiet and goes back to sleep. And it looks like Supergirl hasn't flinched at all. And it's just, we're starting to see that bond between Supergirl and Ruthie just kind of build more there.
That's cool. I like that. I like that moment.
Yeah.
Where she didn't even have to say anything.
Nope. And she's already there sticking up for her. So that is issue 2 of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
This does very much feel like a Western kind of got to go get a gunslinger to kill the bad gunslinger or whatever, Yeah.
Well, again, True Grit in space. Mm-hmm. It's because they're hunting down in True Grit. They're hunting down her father's killer. John Wayne and Matt Damon. I'm mixing the two.
Yeah, John Wayne and Matt Damon, they worked well together.
Bridges and Matt Damon. Who's in the other one with John Wayne?
The Captain Tennille. I don't know.
Yeah, Tennille. But there we go. So
she played a great barmaid.
Issue 3 of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow here as we get things started. And Mike, the tone is about to change a little bit for this series. Yeah. Not that it's a bad thing, but we're going to start adding more depth to our story. What we have here is Supergirl and Ruthie land on a planet called Maypole, I believe is the name of it. I don't have every page here. And it's inhabited by like these blue people that you see kind of in the cover,
creepy looking farts.
But like they show up there on the planet and they're like talking to the sheriff or the head of the police there.
Whatever. Yeah, sure.
And he's
sheriff, like, basically.
He's like, the bathrooms don't work, so like you're not gonna be able to use them. And they're like, no, that's not what we're like. He's just not listening to anything they say, and he's just kind of ignoring them while he's working on like a house of cards. And so they're essentially asking like, hey, I'm trying to find this creme of the Yellow Hills. And like, don't know what you're talking about. And he's just ignoring them. So Supergirl just kind of like blows his house of cards over as they leave, realizing like we're not getting any help here whatsoever. See there, that's cool. There's the mute on the mic.
So I like you have a cough button.
Have a cough button.
Nice.
Supergirl and Ruthie go to check in at a local hotel there.
I used mine.
Nice. We're both using our cough buttons. And when Supergirl goes to sign in, there's like 2 places on the sign-in sheet, like a left and right, and one's blue and one's purple. And so Supergirl's like, I'm sorry, I'm confused. Like, where do I sign? Am I purple or am I blue? And the woman behind the desk is, you're under blue. Like all off-worlders are under blue. Like my mother always said, to be purple, you got to be purple. And Supergirl's just kind of like flipping through this book, and she goes, looks like you haven't had anybody sign in the purple in a while. And the woman's like, yeah, used to have a bunch of them, but for some reason now, we just don't. But I mean, like, yes, there haven't been any in a while. You just sign there in the blue and like everything will be fine. And Supergirl is still just kind of confused by this. She's like, well, why'd they stop coming? And the woman essentially tells her like, well, my dear, if you want a room, you have to go ahead and sign the effing book. That's the law. Ain't no law says that we have to like, give you, what does she say? Give ourselves a useful conversation.
Yeah.
And so Supergirl's kind of like, okay, I'm not getting the full story here.
No.
And she's not liking the attitude she's getting from the people either, but she goes ahead and she signs the book. And then she goes out of their hotel room. And I really like this. And she kind of floats up above the town that they are there, Maypole. And what she's doing is she's scanning. Like she's using her powers to scan through to see who's all in the city.
Right.
And so she's floating there, and Supergirl goes, I can see everyone. And Ruthie goes, any of them creme of the Yellow Hills? And Supergirl goes, no, everyone's blue. Like she's a little still perplexed by this. So they go to grab like food the next day while they're there trying to hunt down, hey, has Creme been through here? And while they're there asking like, do you need something? The waitress does. And Supergirl goes, yeah, that sign behind the counter there. I realized that you painted over it. It used to say no purples. Why no purples? And then why like paint over it? And the waitress just goes, are you going to order something? Like I have other customers. And Supergirl's like, well, I'm asking about the sign. And she goes, I heard you, and I'm asking you about an order. Like, ma'am, like you should focus on that and then, or else get out of the way. We all know about you. Like we all know why you're here. And she says, whole galaxy does you. Where does it say that? I'm sorry. It's hard for me to read. Oh, we all know about you. Whole galaxy does you destroyed your planet. Come here to try to do the same thing to ours. Like, don't mess ours up. And so she's kind of like thrown off by all this.
Yeah, these beings suck. I don't like these people.
They are. That night, Ruthie's awakened from a hotel room in pitch black, and it's Supergirl who goes in there and essentially tells her like, and covers her face. And about that time, she catches a bullet that was shot into the room to save Ruthie, and she essentially like human shields her and takes all the bullets as they spray the room, you know, just trying to shoot whoever is in there. So Supergirl goes to the mayor's office. Yeah, I thought the art even of that was just really cool with the yellows and the oranges.
Yeah.
And they're just swaying by as you also get
they're in a firefight, you know?
in,
so, yeah.
Just zooming in on Ruthie's face. Is it just, oh, it's so great.
Yeah.
So she goes to the mayor of this place, and he's just sitting there like, I'm so glad that you allegedly caught whoever tried to kill you, but like, I can't give you like control over my government to go out and try to do whatever you want to do here. Like, that's not how this runs. Like, you've come here acting like we owe you something. Like, we don't do what you want us to do. You have to quit trying to boss us around like that. And Supergirl's like, y'all are up to something and I know it, but nobody's telling me anything. And she like picks up his desk and like slams it down and like breaks it in front of him. And she goes to like leave, and the mayor goes, I could have you arrested. And she turns around and goes, you could try, and then just leaves. And so what she does is her and Ruthie kind of fly out to the outskirts of town where there's nothing else out there. And she's scanning for a good while until she finally finds something, and she lands and she starts digging and digging and digging. And she uncovers dug down beneath there a sign for like a town sign that says Purple Town on it. And then she keeps digging more after that, and it's just like a mass grave of skeletons. So then she goes back to the main sheriff, head police officer from before, and she just bursts right in, and she's like, talk. And he's like, you have no right, and shoots her just point blank in the face. And I love the art on this too. And you see the bullet just hit there, and she just takes her hand and just like brushes it away. And you can see the fear on the police chief's face of like,
and his giant freaky eyes.
I messed up. And we find out then that not long before Supergirl and Ruthie got there to Maypole, there were two people, the purple and the blues. The blues were the wealthier, more abundant, and they considered the purples to kind of be less than. It's your typical kind of story of what we're used to in a lot of different ways. And so they made the purple people live on the outskirts of Maypole in like lesser housing and just worse situations. Well, what happened was, so that was that small village named Purple Town. And that's how things were until the brigands arrived. And who the brigands are we're about to find out, along with Krim, are going to be our main kind of bads for the rest of the story. They are Barbin's brigands. And they're described as this group that is just so incredibly ruthless of space pirates. That's essentially what they are. They're space pirates. But they will just show up on a planet and just kill and slash everything with no regard for anything, just for the fun of it, and then leave. They'll come to these rich planets and you can try to pay them off, and that still might not do anything because their bloodlust isn't like, quenched. Like, they just do things, they do whatever they want to. And a lot of it is usually just leave a path of destruction in their wake. Yeah. So they show up to Maypole, and the mayor's like begging them, like, please don't hurt us. Like, we can give you this amount of money. And like nothing they're doing is like enough to satiate the brigands. And so the mayor and the police are talking about this when Krim of the Yellow Hills overhears them, because see, Krim was there in Maypole. He had been arrested for like drunken disorderly conduct in public. So he was just hanging out in a holding cell, and he hears them talk about it. And he essentially tells them like, hey, I think I have an answer to your problems. Why don't you offer them all of the purple people, everybody in Purple Town? To which that's exactly what they did. And the brigands realized that Krim of the Yellow Hills is just as soulless, just, a bloodthirsty kind of, OS as the rest of them.
Oh, he's in it for him. Yeah. I mean, he's anything to save his skin.
And so the Blues essentially sacrificed all of the purples in Purple Town to the Brigands so that everybody else in Maypole could live. And we end the story like, I mean, it's gorgeous, but still just kind of horrific at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't have it. I wish I added the page. The last page is like Ruthie is kind of shocked by all this because it would make sense. I mean, her being from a place where something like that isn't necessarily common to see. And she's like, they're just going on about their regular happy lives. Like nothing happened. Like, and they've done something just so awful. And like Supergirl has to sit there and comfort her. And Ruthie says, we're so small and it's so big. Of just of just how like just evil and depressing and stuff the world is out there.
Yeah.
And it's Supergirl there like comforting Ruthie in that moment. And the two of them are like, all right, come on, we have to go on to the next place. Like we have to keep, going on our mission. Yeah. And that then ends issue 3 of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So we will close our story out today with issue 4, and that wraps up part 1 here of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Next week, we will dive into part 2, issues 5 through 8. But issue 4, again, all these covers, the cover art is just absolutely gorgeous on all these. Was this the one that you said that reminded you of the Metallica cover?
No, it's whenever you had one up there and it was just a black screen. I was trying to be funny. Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
You're fine.
Anyway.
I like the font. The choice of font here also impresses me.
It works really well.
Because it does feel Western, but it also feels futuristic.
Yes. Yes, I love it. I also love this one where it's like, you'll see, especially with this one, because it's them trying to hunt down Barbin's brigands now. Sorry, Barbin's brigands, because they know for sure Krim is with them. So this issue might be my favorite of the 8 because I think it shows you how, like, what kind of person Supergirl is in all this, but it's also them traveling from planet to planet to planet to planet. And so I like that too, that the cover has like a map kind of feel to it as well, because they are all over the place with this story. So we start in the first, we see Ruthie and Supergirl on this planet of these like pink inhabitants, and she's holding a baby and she's telling the baby like it's going to be okay. And she's the only one left alive there on the planet that they're at there, or at least in the city that they're at there. Ruthie tells a story about how like she's the youngest of her kid or of her brothers and siblings and stuff. And that, so she never really had much like youth around, but they'd go visit cousins and see how like they would kind of like how some of the other women or even the younger cousins could be so like motherly to younger kids. And she talks about how Supergirl is to like that creature there in that moment of like, taking them up and like calming them and making sure they're protected. As we see just the aftermath there of that, honestly, that little baby is the only thing left. We then go to this next place, the planet, and again, I don't have every panel from the story to tell the full story of here, but they're talking to a guy in a hospital, and he's like, we didn't even know when the brigands would be here. And he's talking about his friend Flarg. It's his best friend Flarg. And he's like,
my buddy Flarg.
Like, yeah, me and Flarg have been buddies since like day one. We've been best mates, man. Like we've done everything together. A lot of times, he's like, we did everything. And so we were just trying to escape. Like when we saw the ships coming, we were just trying to get to safety, just to get away. Me and Flarg, man, we've been together since the beginning. We've been running mates forever. I'm sorry. I repeat myself. It's been a lot. Like you can tell he's kind of, trying to tell the stories he's going through. And he talks about, and he's like, yeah, the guy that you're looking for, he sounds familiar. Like he just sat there and just decided to just start cutting up Flarg for no reason. Like he hunted us down, no warning, just, struck right into him. And there's these really human elements that are just kind of sad to these stories that add weight to them. And he's like sitting there, the guy telling the story, and he's like, they always used to talk about Flarg and about how quiet he was. and that he never said much. And they'd always ask me about them. Man, that Flarg doesn't say much. He goes, that's why I was kind of like shocked in that moment to hear him yell out as loud as he did. Where I was like, oh, wow, Flarg, didn't you know you had that in you? Like, he's not like, you know, he's trying to process all this. And obviously it's still something very traumatic. But, and then he tells, like, after he was done with him, he's like, I realized that the screaming, like Flarg's screaming stopped. And it was just mine that I was hearing as Krim was just like hacking into me. And the whole time he's telling this story, Supergirl is sitting by his bedside, feeding him. And we come to find out, like, they're over, like, there's just so many people there in the hospital unit that they have there that they don't have enough nurses and stuff for everybody. So Supergirl, while they're talking to him, is sitting there feeding him and taking care of him, like, while they're there getting the story from him. And it's
Looks
just,
like the
again,
dude had
it's
his
just
arms, legs, everything cut off.
he did. And she's
Yeah.
taking, like, you know, and she's listening to everything he tells, and every time he like, she's just like, no, it's like,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
showing again, like, this Supergirl is just like Superman. Again, maybe a little more foul mouth, a little more colorful, but at the core, like, she is the hero you would want her to be. And so she's sitting there feeding him there. And then we come to this other planet, and they come across this guy just digging a bunch of mass graves. And, like, she lands there, and they come to find out that, like, that's exactly what he's individual graves, but like, Supergirl asks what he's doing, and the guy says, well, the mayor says, like, if I can get these done before the sunset, not like our usual sunset, but whatever it is for their planet, that we don't have to do a mass grave. And he goes, and my daughter is one of the people here, so I'd really like to be able to have a place to visit. And so Supergirl was like, mind if I help? And the dude's like, why do you want to do that? And she goes, well, because, like, you're my neighbor, and it's part of my duty to kind of, like, help you with all this. And he's like, yeah, sure, I guess I could use a little bit of a break. And so he hands her the shovel, and she sits there.
Oh, she's like, bam, bam, bam,
yeah,
bam.
She does.
Just hitting them.
Having a kid really messes with your emotions.
I get that.
So she, she goes through and she knocks them all out, and she hands the shovel back to him. And she goes, like, I scanned your DNA while doing this, so I can take you to your daughter's grave, so you know exactly where it's at. But if you don't mind, like, looking over the rest of my work too, I'd really appreciate it. She goes, because I'm just like everybody else. Like, I make mistakes, so I'd like that. And he's like, yeah, I'll I should. Like, I'll go and look over them all too. And he's like, thank you. And he calls her neighbor. And then we're taken to.
Good God, what a change.
We're taken to our next planet,
which
is these giant, like, purple, just these huge, like, you know, purple beings that live there. And Ruthie talks about how
it's such impactful artwork, though, in that the pink and the purple and the
green and the black.
It's almost not even a green. It's almost like a chartreuse or something. You know, I mean, it's very, very nice. That is very striking, especially after seeing what we just saw. Very striking.
It's definitely a difference between them. But Ruthie talks about these people as being, like, considered mighty warriors and very strong. But when they got there, so, like, while they're there, apparently this woman was off planet working, like, they were fighting some other planet. And when she came back, like, she saw her people and, like, her family and stuff had been, like, you know, murdered, and she wasn't there. And Supergirl tells her, like, hit me. And the woman is like, you're so small and I'm large, I will hurt you. And she goes, no, you won't. I'll be fine. Like, hit me. And she's like, I can't do this. And she goes, why? Like, why not? Come on, hit me. And she's like, what, are you scared? And she's like, I'm not scared. You don't understand. You're small and I'm large. And Supergirl goes, you're not large. If you were large, you would have stopped them. Now, all you are is effing small, like, just yelling at the person.
Yeah.
And the woman just starts, like, laying into Supergirl, just, like, beating away. I love the art on this, though, too, of just pounding away. And Supergirl the whole time is like, is that it? Is that it? And finally, like, lets the woman, I don't have it all, lets the woman get it all out. And then eventually she starts breaking down. And Supergirl's there to comfort her. Like she's like helping.
Yeah. Helping her get
she's
past.
Going through and she's helping all these people like process everything that's happened to them.
Yeah.
Then we get to this other place, which is I don't remember the name of this planet, but it's one of the first one they've got to where they essentially document everything on this planet. So while Ruthie and Supergirl had been traveling from planet to planet, they've been coming across just the aftermath. This is a chance for them to see everything as it happens. And Supergirl will not let Ruthie go in to watch it. She's like, come on, like, why not? And she goes, you're just a girl. And Ruthie's like, you were just a girl when Krypton exploded. Like, she's always wanting to. And she goes, you don't think I can handle it? And Supergirl's like, the things that are going to be on this tape, like, no. Like, and she just won't let Ruthie do it. So Ruthie just kind of like stays outside and like falls asleep waiting. And Supergirl then comes out, and you can tell just kind of like on the look on her face, like she's seen stuff, because she's like, Supergirl, and Supergirl's just like, huh, what? Sorry. And she's like, did you see it? Did you see him? And she's like, yeah, he was here. I saw all of it. So like whatever it is even still just horrific enough for like Supergirl to see. And I do kind of love that in a sense of not showing, because we've always heard the old thing of like, sometimes, you know, like imagination is just as good, if not, you know, of actually seeing it. So like in my mind, the horrors I can think of could vastly outweigh whatever they could draw out there. And I kind of at least like that there, but it's also painting the picture of these are just deplorable individuals. They come.
It's like watching a horror movie. You know, I always love it when you don't see the bad guy. You know, it's scarier to me, honestly, when you don't see the monster.
Oh, I completely agree. And it just like builds and builds and builds that way, and you build it up in your head.
However, this creep is freaking scary looking.
Who?
The one we're about to
this guy? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ruthie talks about, we see this guy who is one of the brigands who appears to be caught. And they ask him, like, do you have any final words? And he's like, yeah, I got some. And they're like, all right, let's hear it. And he's just like, I want to say that before you all caught me, well, I'd be lying if I say I wasn't having a bunch of fun, man. So thank you for all that, man. I'm in your debt. All right, go ahead. Do what you got to do. Like, he's just an asshole still about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm done. And then he goes, long live the brigands of, and then before he can finish it, boom, rock right to the face, followed by more and more. And they just kind of stone him. And Ruthie talks about, like, you know, we visited this planet that I've heard is known for the red clay that they make this special pottery out of. That's what the planet's known for. I have to tell you, I wasn't able to see any of their special pottery on my visit. Maybe I'll get to next time I come back around. Like, that's what she's saying. And while they're stoning him, there is a moment where Ruthie kind of looks over at Supergirl and she goes, I know he surely deserved this, but I had some thought that you'd save him. And Supergirl doesn't even look at her and just goes, you did? Or did you? Question mark. Like, after everything, like, you still think that, you know.
Yeah.
All right. But it does kind of show that, like, sorry, my allergies killing me.
Okay.
Like, it's a moment of where, like, Supergirl even in there is just like, you thought I'd say, like, that's what's kind of supposed to happen in a sense. Then she talks about this planet we go through that was considered to be like one of the peaceful planets ever. It was just filled with monks there in the tower, and that when the brigands showed up, they didn't even like get up. They just started praying to their deities, and the brigands just sit there and just slaughter them all where they sat. And Supergirl sees all of this, and she's like, I have to go. She's like, I can't, like, I'm gonna scream at like what I see in here, and if I scream, it's gonna cause what's left of this place to come tumbling down. And she's like, I can't. And so she just takes off into space, and it shows her go towards, like, I don't know if it's the sun or like another yellow sun, and just like go and just like sit there and just burrow in it. Like, she is just overcome with emotion about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
There's some really great writing there by Tom King, where he has Ruthie kind of talk about Supergirl as she's flying away, talking about of like, you know, the thing about Supergirl that makes her a hero and powerful isn't like her heat vision or her super strength or like her, you know, her her cool breath. It's the fact that she didn't use the lasers to like see you. She didn't use her cold breath to talk to you. Like it's the personalness or the personability of her, which is what makes her what she is. Then we get back to, we finally come to this last planet, and Ruthie just says, some things are too horrible to write about, so I won't tell you about this. And while they're sitting there on this little like tuft, it reminds me of like from a Dr. Seuss book.
It does feel like
Supergirl essentially tells Ruthie like, all right, like we're getting close. Like I'm pretty sure the next place we go to, Krim will be there. So I'm sending you back home. And Ruthie's like, why? Like, no, like I'm here with you. And she's like, I don't need, like, I've seen him enough. I don't need you to like point him out for me anymore. Like, it's just going to be dangerous for you.
Yeah.
And Ruthie's essentially like, no, like we're a part of this. Like we're doing this together. Like you had to put up with so much. I can do it too. And so Supergirl's just like, all right, I don't want to fight. Let's do this. Then she like hunches down and Ruthie hangs onto her back and the two take off to essentially meet up with Krim of the Yellow Hills.
I like how, and I don't know a hell of a lot about this series or whatever, but the fact that they keep referencing like Superman catchphrases and stuff, like the very end of this is up and away, you know, and that older Superman stuff. I mean, you'll hear that a lot. At one point, like when she first started meeting the aliens, she said something about truth, justice, and the American way. Yeah. I mean, it's just cool how it's peppered through there, but it almost means something different when she says it, you know?
No, for sure. And I love that too, of like, if you're familiar with stuff, like you'll notice things like that. And there is a lot of Superman references throughout the book. There's more, like we got Crypto. I told you Comet's coming. You haven't seen him yet. I kind of spoiled that for you.
God damn it, you're making me come around on Supergirl now. I'm telling
you, I read this and I was like blown away of how much I loved it. Of just like hope. It's like hopeful and inspiring while still being like, it's so good.
Yeah,
it's just so good.
No, it's very well done.
But you have to wait until next week.
Can I show you something? Can I show you something real quick?
Yeah, hold on. Let me exit out of this on my end.
Yeah,
can you share your screen on yours?
Yeah, I think I can. Okay. Let's see. I got to know what I'm looking for here. Here we go.
Oh, this will be fun.
Yeah.
Real quick. That was issue 4 of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Let me go full screen again.
Yeah, this is some of her art, and this is on Instagram. This is just beautiful stuff here. And the only reason I brought it up is because you said Comet's coming. Well, you know, she talks about how one of her favorite moments and how she loves to draw horses because they're very challenging and that kind of stuff. And
I did like this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Go for it. Go for it.
She said, and I think you'll appreciate this, I made the gray tones with ink on a separate board. Then Matt Lopes, who I talked about, did the coloring, adjusted it, adding his masterness on values, which again, his color in this is fantastic too. Like it's a team effort, and it seems like it all comes together just so well.
I screwed up there we go. You did it. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was really cool. I wasn't really out there looking for stuff, but I did send her a message. And so I was like, oh, well, let me click. Oh, there's a horse. So I figured that's what it was. And yeah, it's beautiful stuff.
There we go. So that is issue 4 of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Next week on the show, we will cover issues 5 through 8 to give you the conclusion of our story. Coming up later this week on Wednesday, this is Monday, so in a couple days, we'll have a World's Finest Wednesday for you, where we're going to go ahead and break down Thor's origin. It's a pretty quick story, and we're going to have fun. This was a little more serious, so Mike and I get to have some fun.
Is it a Thorigin?
It is a Thorigin. Oh, I'm so using that.
Thank
I'm
you.
so stealing that, and I'm going to use that. But that is what we have coming up on Wednesday, and again, next week, part 2 here of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow to close out the story. And then now you'll also know what to potentially expect from the DCU movie that they're working on.
This was fantastic. I really enjoyed this one. I thought this was really good.
It is, and it ends fantastically too. So great stuff to look forward to there. As always,
how does it end?
It ends with
don't tap.
Oh well, it was a fire at the Megalo Mart.
She flies off with the horse. They get married and they.
Well,
last
no, wait.
forever.
Oh, it was a explosion in the Megalomart, wasn't it?
Yeah,
wasn't
that
a
killed
fire.
Buckley. Yeah,
Was
poor Buckley.
but Chuck Mangiano made it out okay.
Chuck Mangione was fine until in the later seasons. And by the way, this is King of the Hill. By the way, in the later season, they find him living at the Megalomart.
Really? Like he's just been living there?
They think it's raccoons. It's really Chuck Mangione who's hiding inside the store.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, if you like King of the Hill, Mike has another podcast that he does called Blah. I kind of try to do that. That you should check out, as well as the other fantastic podcasts we have across the Rogue Media family of podcasts.
RogueMediaNetwork.com.
And as always, we appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen.
Following me everywhere. I hate it.
It does. I kind of like it to make sure you never, run away on me.
Yeah, but Jesus.
Anyway,
Making me seasick.
Until next time, stay safe, everybody.
Golly Con.
Pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about pros and heroes. Gonna tell you about.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.